Hey YouTube. I'm going to interpret a number of songs in this YouTube series from a similar perspective that Jordan Peterson interprets Bible and Disney stories. Um, he does so through psychology and evolution and cosmology and all these interesting subjects, apply to story. And I thought we could do, or I could do the same with song. So first song I'm gonna do is "The Times Are Changin" by Bob Dylan. Come gather round, people, wherever you roam, and admit that the waters around you have grown, and accept it that soon you'll be drenched to the bone. If your time to you is worth saving, then you'd better start swimming or you'll sink like a stone, for the times they are a change. So, the first verse of this song, it has to do with complexity, the constant continuation of complexity in life. As time goes on, we are forced to deal with more things. We have more issues, plus all the issues of the past. So it's like, all right, let's take something easy to understand when it comes to complexity, like TV, movies, and music. Every day there's new TV shows, new music, new movies being released, and the old stuff doesn't go away. It's like that's still available. That content is still there for you to watch or listen to. So now we have more options than ever, and our level of complexity is arising. This is actually a feature of the universe related to the second law of thermodynamics that states that entropy in a given system will increase over time until equilibrium is achieved. So, as a system of the universe, we fall into this category as well. And a big shout out to Sean Carroll's Mindscape. This is where I learned about second law of thermodynamics and entropy in time, and it's good stuff. So Netflix or any of these streaming services will pile on all kinds of content, or streaming service you have, or like Spotify, you have every song you could ever imagine, and more, and then more is being added to it, and more is being added to it. So it's a lot. There's our entropy is increasing. So what do you have to do? Like there's so many options, so many choices. You kind of have to rise above it. This is what I think this verse relates to, where it's like you need to not be overwhelmed with the complexity of life and rise above it. And you can do this by kind of minimalizing your frame, your kind of your life frame. Reduce your choices. If you have like 3 streaming services, just reduce it down to 1. If you're feeling anxious about what to watch, it's like you can minimalize your by minimalizing your choices, you really reduce stress and anxiety. And that's kind of what what that verse is about, because it's like if you don't do that, you're just gonna die in the infinite, and you're gonna spend all your time just trying to make a damn decision because it's so overwhelming. There's too many options. Just reduce. So that's what that one's talking about. Come writers and critics who prophesize with your pen, and keep your eyes wide, the chance won't come again. And don't speak too soon, for the wheel's still in spin. And there's no telling who that is naming. For the loser now will be later to win. For the times they are a-changin'. The second verse is referring to, he says, come writers and critics. And we can throw journalists into this bag as well. Basically telling them to not be biased and not creating a narrative of current events or things happening in reality. This isn't meant to be viewed as a story. Stories are meant to be viewed as stories. Let's keep reality and stories kind of separate for now, because we can't handle it. It's become somewhat of a game to follow these story-based kind of one side good versus evil type game. Like it's just give me the facts, man. Just give me the facts and let me make a decision for myself. Don't feed me my opinion. And that's what the current news outlets or journalists, they're just feeding you an opinion. And I mean this is happening in politics. This is happening in a lot of places where they're kind of, people aren't forced to make decisions themselves. Maybe people don't want to, but if you don't want to, then don't just parrot somebody else's opinion. It's a problem, and it's like you like as a journalist or a reporter, you have a responsibility to people, and to squander that by forcing an opinion, or this is actually another thing I learned on Sean Carroll's Mindscape. One of his guests came on, and I forget what news outlet she worked for, but the message from the guys at the top, they're saying, bring in the people who are going to bring the heat, not bring the people who have something meaningful to say or have the facts. Let's bring the experts in. No, it's like that's what they're telling the producers to do, is bring someone who's going to bring the heat. And that's, I think, atrocious. That's just not good for society in general. This verse is clearly warning those people to not do that, yet that seems to be what's happening. So I don't like it, and I hope we get away from it soon. Now, an excellent point made in that verse is that if you're a journalist or you're a writer or you're a critic, don't speak too soon, for the wheels still in spin. Time will make a liar out of you. So think twice. Come senators, congressmen, please heed the call. Don't stand in the doorway, don't block up the hall. For he who gets hurt will be he who has stalled a battle outside third verse is clearly a call to those in power to make the right decision. And even back, when Bob wrote this, they were dealing with their own issues. There's always the next issue, the next hot button thing. It's like we think it's that bad right now. Like we think it's terrible, but if you look throughout history, there's World War II broke out less than 100 years ago, and people are going off and losing their lives, and mothers were afraid that their husbands weren't going to come home, and it happened all the time. Children woke up and found out that their father died. Like that was just happening all the time, and it's like, okay, that's obviously terrible. And, it's like right now, with the current political climate and global warming and what else? I mean, all the protesting and, you know, equality and equity and all these things happening and hurricanes and forest fires. It's like, it's a lot too, right? It is a lot. It's not war, but I mean, it's still it still fucks with us psychologically. And what the people in power need to do is to make laws that prevent things like that from happening. So making sure that the climate doesn't degrade into just an ice age, or where habitats are becoming unlivable and coastlines are going to start shrinking, and people will be displaced, and winters will be different and summers will be different, and the weather will be changing in ways that we're not used to, and more storms and more fires, and it's just like that's the thing that we need to worry about, and it seems to be kind of low on the priority list for now because maybe people aren't as aware of it as they should be, or it's like, well, that's just going to happen in the future, and I don't need to worry about it because what's happening now is more important. But the day will come, and we need our people in power to make correct decisions. Because who knows, maybe there's going to be something else that comes up and just layers on the level of shit. Like maybe a solar flare wipes out the electrical grid, and then the climate's changing, and all this, and all that, and everything, plus we lose power. So let's start wiping some things off the board, politicians. At least climate change is one of the things that you can start to make a positive change on. Because, if you look back over time, the evolutionary scientists have actually found that it is very likely that the Sahara Desert was once like a luscious rainforest, and because of humans over cultivation or over gathering of the fauna, that the forest became unsustainable and became a desert. And that happened, I can't remember now how long ago it was, but maybe few 100,000 years ago, or somewhere between 200,000 and 85,000 years ago, possibly longer. Um, so we need to seriously evaluate what it is we do and how that affects the climate, how that affects, animal populations. It's not just about us. There are other creatures living here too. Let's give them some range. So that's what this verse is about. And you know, climate change is now. Let's do something about that so we can focus on the next problem and not have to worry about this one as much, maybe, hopefully. Come mothers and fathers throughout the land, and don't criticize what you don't understand. Your sons and your daughters are beyond your command. Your old road is rapidly aging. Please get out of the new one if you can't lend your hand, for the times they are a-changin'. So the fourth verse is talking about how kids are always going to be into weird shit. Kids, are oftentimes misunderstood or not understood by their parents, and then the parents fight back because the kids aren't doing things the way that they want them to do them. But if you take a step back, you find out that they're actually doing the exact same thing, just kind of like just slightly different. And because the future's always different than the past. There's like, what's going to happen when your stereotypical father says you need to go out there and get a job, son. But Dad, the robots have all the jobs. Now all I do is play video games and I get paid for it. And it's like, well, that's still a job. That's still something. I mean, maybe it's not the exact picture of what that stereotypical father would have wanted, but an acceptance of what's new and maybe what's, could be good in a sense, uh, needs to get into the hearts and minds of parents, and really look at like which way which way society, which way our culture is heading towards. Because you know, I like to think about things in evolutionary from an evolutionary standpoint here too. Like I just think about earlier humans, and at what point were the hunter-gatherers upset with their kids because they didn't want to hunt and gather anymore? I don't know what the next is like. Well, Dad, I just want to just chip stone. Just want, I just want to make wheels. What? No, you must hunt. But Dad, the wheel is the future. No, the spear is the future. um, I, it's a funny thing to think about, and it's happened for tens of thousands of years, and it will hopefully happen for several thousand years more, unless we screw things up. So that's what that verse is about. Just getting into the mind of your children, and actually like giving them just wisdom. Wisdom is key here. Don't tell them what to do. Just give them words to kind of live by. And if you have to dip into the platitudes, just do it. They're they're there for a reason. Maybe they're one-dimensional and easy to interpret and kind of simplistic, but sometimes that's what kids need. They just need simplistic words of wisdom. And if you keep on hammering them home, they're gonna kind of go into their subconscious. They're just gonna get into there and that form a pattern, form a rhythm. And when they're a little bit older and they have to deal with something in life that really catches them off guard, they're gonna fall back on those words of wisdom. And that's what that's I think what Bob is trying to say there, or at least my interpretation of what Bob's trying to say. The line it is drawn, the curse it is cast. The slow one now will later be fast. The present now will later be past. The order is rapidly fading, and the first one now will later be last. For the times they are a change. All right, so this last verse kind of brings it all together. It's you know telling you that one day, one day far in the future, people are going to look back at photographs of us the same way that we look at old black and white, old timey photographs from the 19th century, and they're going to kind of look back at us and just laugh about how silly, or maybe how serious we looked. Hopefully they'll be maybe a little more lighthearted at that moment in time. Um, but it's like time marches on, and it will be here for a long, like the universe will be here for a long, long time after you're gone. So maybe enjoy the present. That's a good way to live. Is enjoy the present. And there are great ways that you can do. There are great methods that you can use to enjoy the present. Meditation for me is works wonders. So this verse might touch a little bit on what else. Also, yeah, we can the last stanza there, I guess, of the verse. It says that the first one now will later be last. So I like to think about maybe like the dinosaurs here that lived 300 million years ago. They were the kings of the planet. They dominated. Well, our ancestors were still underground. And when the asteroid came that wiped them all out, the only reason that they became extinct and we survived is the fact that we were underground. We were the last ones. We were down in hell. They were the ones eating from the tallest trees and getting all the sunlight. They were the ones that were first, and we were last, and now we're first. It's possible that one day in the future, some other species will be digging up our bones the same way that we dig up dinosaur bones and displaying them in museums, and that possible future it kind of scares me, even though I won't be around for it. I have kids, and their kids will have kids, and so on and so on, and everyone who comes from me in the future, I want them to have as good a life that I've had the opportunity to experience. So I think it's so important that we try to not let that future be a reality. And I think that's maybe what Mr. Dylan was trying to get at, back when he wrote this song like 50 years ago or something, maybe more than that. I think it's maybe 1962, something like that. Um, it's a great song, and I hope you liked my interpretation.